yashmir Shabbat el yishmereni. I don't see our candle blessing honoree. I wonder if Helen and John, would you like to come up and lead the candle blessing? Page 120, and a reading of your choosing on 121.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
As these Shabbat lights, candles, give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Thank you. We continue on 127. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat, together for Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. And we continue on page 138 as we join in singing L'chad Odi tonight. Just to have a little extra time for the discussion, we'll just do verses 1 and 9. And so when we get to verse 9, we'll rise and face the entrance of the room. Yalala, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. L'chad Odi likrat kala, yalala, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. L'chad Odi likrat kala, yalala, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad. Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shemo l'tiferet v'litilah. L'chad Odi likrat kala, yalala, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. L'chad Odi likrat kala, yalala, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 9. Hoi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simha u'v'tzola, toch emunei am segula, boi kala, boi kala. L'chad Odi likrat kala, yalala, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. L'chad Odi likrat kala, yalala, 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 pnei Shabbat Havilah. Please be seated, and we turn to page 140. Mizmor shir leyom hashabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, lehagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatcha alelot, alei asor ve'aleina, ve'alei higayon bechinot. Mizmor shir leyom hashabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. We turn now to 263. We're going to use Shabbat service number 2 this evening, page 263, as we rise for the Reader's Kaddish. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabba, Amen. Be'amad yivarach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chaye v'yom echon u'v'chaye dechol Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kari imeru Yehei shemei Rabba mevarach le'alam ul'almei amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imeru. 264. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Responsively on 265. Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. And on 266, we join in singing Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Hukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadata, Otanu limadata. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu, Kumeinu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki heim hayenu, ve'orech yameinu, u'vahem negeyomam v'layla, אהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. We are seated. Page 268, we join in chanting. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Emet. Page 296, responsively. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all. Yet that oneness eludes our gasp. Sorry, 269, did I give you the wrong page? 269, I'm so used to the other pages. Let's start that again. 269, we worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all. Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection. Before our eyes there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness. When will redemption come? Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High. We learn God's presence redeems time and event. So we celebrate this power that makes for freedom. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot o sefele, nora tehilot o sefele, malchutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Eli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. The third line down of the Hebrew, or the transliteration on the top of the next page, has the words Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Spread over us the sukkah of your peace. Uferos aleinu sukat, sukat. English. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. 272. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael, et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, דורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We continue on 273 as we rise for the tefillah section of the service. And we take a moment to privately meditate and prepare ourselves for this central section of our worship service. Page 274. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Ha'akol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, U'mevi ge'ula livnei v'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah. Responsively in English, starting on 275 and then continuing on the next page. We pray that we might know before whom we stand, the power whose gift is life, who quickens those who have forgotten how to live, having implanted within us an eternal spirit. We pray for winds to disperse the air of sadness. Parched hopes rise again. We pray for love to encompass us, for no reason save that we are human, that we may blossom into persons who have gained power over our own lives. Upright we fallen, to be healed we sufferers. We pray to break the bonds that keep us from the world of beauty, to our own true selves, in the garden of purpose, in touch with the power. Praise be the God whose gift is life, whose cleansing reigns. Let parched men and women rise again. Baruch atah Adonai, Michaye Hakol. Page 276 at the bottom half of the page. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukadoshim b'chol yom, yehalelu chasela, baruch ata Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. We are seated. We join together on 278. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai, our God, grant as our heritage your holy Shabbat, that Israel, who sanctifies your name, may rest on it. Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat. On 279, together be gracious, Adonai, our God, to your people Israel, and receive our prayers with love. O may our worship always be acceptable to you. Fill us with the knowledge that you are near to all who seek you in truth. 280, let our eyes behold your presence in our midst and in the midst of our people in Zion. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato l'tzion. 281, responsibly, for the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. Prove the world with our hearts and our hands. For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful. For life and nature, harmony and beauty. All praise to the source of being. For all these things, O sovereign God, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lahodot. 282. Shalom, Rava Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom, Rava Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon, l'chol ha'shalom. Ki atahu melech Adon, l'chol ha'shalom. V'tov be'einecha, levarech et amcha Yisrael. B'chol eit uv'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. We take this time for silent prayer and meditation. say shalom, shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imru amen. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom leinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol Israel We continue now with the Torah service, and I don't have the person here who has the Aliyah. Ben, would you mind doing the Aliyah this evening? Binyamin Hanan. Ben. I might remember part of that.
That's okay, I'll help you.
Okay, 362, we rise to take the Torah from the ark. Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'aseh. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dorvar. Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Page 364. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Udvar Adonai mi'Yerushalayim. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael Bikdu Shato. Page 366 together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Together, hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti uneromema Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai Hagedola v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod. Ki chov hashamayim uva'aretz. Ki chov hashamayim uva'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'amit na'aseh lechol erosh. Ki chov hashamayim uva'aretz. Ki chov hashamayim uva'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'amit na'aseh lechol shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. The Torah portion for this Shabbat is Mishpatim. And if you wish to follow the section of it that I'll be reading, please turn in either your red Eitz Chaim Humash to 461 or the blue Hertz Humash to 308. If you're in the blue Humash, it's the very last line of the page, verse 20, and then it goes on to 309. So 308 in the blue Hertz Humash, and at the top of 461 in the Eitz Chaim. Many of you are aware that we're looking at a particular text in the Torah portion for our discussion section, and that particular verse will be included in what I read, but it's not all of what I'm going to read. This is a section on how to deal with when a person is injured. How is that person compensated for the injury that they receive? The first section has to do with when a slave is injured. And then it goes on to the section that we'll be talking about later, where two men fight and inadvertently a pregnant woman is injured. And then it goes on to a section that is often quoted about life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, probably made most famous and put in the mouth of Tevye on Fiddler on the Roof, where he says, one of the people says to Tevye, we should fight against the Cossacks coming to take us out of our little shtetl, and Tevye says, someone says, doesn't the Torah say eye, for tooth to tooth? And then Tevye says, oh, great, then the whole world will be blind and toothless. Remember that line? Mm-hmm. So that's also in the section that I'll be reading, but it's important to understand that this passage is often misunderstood to mean that if someone's eye is punched out, then you have to punish them by also knocking out their eye or their tooth. That is not what it means. It's talking about compensatory damages that are paid, but it's often misunderstood and misquoted in that way. So I will be reading from verse 20 through 25. And for the Aliyah this evening, we call to the Torah Ben Goldstein, Ya'amod, Ben Yamin Hanan, Ben Yisachar, Shmuel V'Mashi.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMvorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. V'chiyakeh ish et avdo et amato b'shevet umei tachat yado nakom yenakem ach yom o yomayim ya'amod lo yakum ki kaspohu V'hi yanatsu anashim v'nagfu isha hara v'yotziu v'yatzu yeladeha v'lo yihye ason anosh ye'anesh ka'asher yashit alav ba'al ha'isha v'natan b'flilim Ve'im ason yehiyeh v'natata nefesh tachat nafesh ayin tachat ayin shein tachat shein יד תחת יד, רגל תחת רגל, כביה תחת כביה, פצע תחת פצע, חבורה תחת חבורה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat amet, v'chayei olam natah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Shkoach. Rise as we lift the Torah. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe livnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe livnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. Back. Please be seated. We continue now with the Mishaberach for those in need of healing, page 371 in the prayer book. As we sing the Mishaberach this evening, we think of congregation members who are in need of healing. Stephen St. Amon, Haggai Mibeit Abraham Besara, Linda Salzberg, Leah Ruth Bat Yaakov Halim, William Jewell, Yisrael Ben Abraham Besara, Lisa Alexander, Leah Michal Bat Rezel Chaya, Barney Lavin, Baruch Eliyahu Ben Abraham Besara, Naomi Weissman Zabler, Naomi Bat Schreiga Feivel Miriam, Skelly Warren, Yaakov Ben Yaakov. If there are others you would like to mention who are in need of healing, please do so at this time. Any others? We also pray for all those injured and suffering physically and emotionally in Israel and Gaza. We pray for healing for those who struggle against addiction and alcoholism and mental illness. And we pray for courage for those in recovery. Joining together praying for Refuah Shlema, a complete recovery. Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor habracha Avotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And for the Haftarah this Shabbat, we call upon David Domash to read. Haftarah comes from the book of Jeremiah. You can find it in the red Eitz Chaim Chumash on 482, and in the blue Hertz Chumash on 323. We're beginning at chapter 34 of Jeremiah with verse 8, but that's the very beginning of the Haftarah. The passage is chosen because Jeremiah speaks here about how slaves should be treated. Just as I mentioned, there are several verses in the Torah portion about the treatment of slaves, and you'll see that Jeremiah is speaking about how King Zedekiah made a covenant with the people of Jerusalem that they should release all of their slaves, and they agreed to do that, but then they again enslaved people. And this Jeremiah lived in the time just preceding the Babylonian exile, and so he's warning the people here that they have gone astray from God, and if they continue to go astray, that they will, an enemy will come and take over them, and of course that is what happens in Jeremiah's time. The prayer, yeah, it's on 372. If you want to follow along, the prayer is there in the prayer book on 372.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai chabocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'viviei ha'emet v'tzedek. The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord after King Zedekiah had made a covenant with all the people in Jerusalem to proclaim a release among them, that everyone should set free his Hebrew slaves, both male and female, and that no one should keep his fellow Judean enslaved. Everyone, officials and people who had entered into the covenant, agreed to set their male and female slaves free and not keep them enslaved any longer. They complied and let them go. But afterward they turned about and brought back the men and women they had set free and forced them into slavery again. Then it was that the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, I made a covenant with your fathers when I brought them out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage, saying, in the 7th year, each of you must let go any fellow Hebrew who may be sold to you. When he has served you 6 years, you must set him free. But your fathers would not obey me or give ear. Lately you turned about and did what is proper in my sight, and each of you proclaimed a release to his countrymen. And you made a covenant accordingly before me in the house which bears my name. But now you have turned back and have profaned my name. Each of you has brought back the men and women whom you have had given their freedom and forced them to be your slaves again. Assuredly, thus said the Lord, you would not obey me and proclaim a release, each to his kinsmen and countrymen. Lo, I proclaim your release, declares the Lord, to the sword, to pestilence, and to famine, and I will make you a whore to all the kingdoms of the earth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol ha'amim, sadik b'kol ha'darot, ha'el naha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'mdaber u'mkayem, shekol derav rav, emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah, ve'al ha'vodah, ve'al ha'mviim, ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, l'chavod u'teferet, Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, uvarchim otak, yiparak shimcha b'fi kol chai tamid leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-shabbat. Thank you.
You'll notice that it ended on kind of a sad note. Haftarah is supposed to end on a note of comfort, nechemta. And if we were to read the whole Haftarah, it would have ended saying, eventually you'll do the right thing, and God says, you'll do the right thing, and I'll take you back. But I didn't want to read the whole Haftarah, so we didn't end on a note of nechemta, hope. Thank you, David. Before we return the Torah to the ark, I want to read a prayer on behalf of the hostages, so we are still praying will be returned. Our God, the one who raised up Joseph from the pit, be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in time of trouble. Send complete rescue and full redemption to those held captive by the enemy. Strengthen their spirit and bring them our prayers that they be protected from all harm. Grant wisdom to the Israel Defense Forces that they may secure freedom for the captives without loss of life. Grant strength of spirit and courage of heart to all the sons and daughters of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar to release bonds of captivity and allow us all to live in freedom. And then one more prayer from the prayer book. Please turn to page 379. This is the prayer for the new month. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu. Our God and God of our ancestors, may the new month bring us goodness and blessing. May we have long life, peace, prosperity, a life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts are fulfilled for good. Rosh Chodesh Adar Aleph, the new month of Adar 1. This is a leap year, so we have an extra month of Adar. Begins today, Hu Hayom. And that is not the month of Purim, because when there are 2 months of Adar, Purim is in Adar 2. So we have to wait another whole month for Purim. Save the date, Saturday night, March 23rd. Be here. It's going to be fun. So happy month of Adar Aleph. And we return the Torah to the ark by turning to page 374, and we rise. Hodo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem keren le'amo tehila lechol chasidav livnei Yisrael am kirovo. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. For I have given you good instruction. Do not abandon my Torah. Eitz chayim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomecheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem. We continue on 587 as we go right to Aleinu now. And we read in the English on 587 this evening. Let us adore the ever-living God and render praise unto you, who spreads out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above and whose greatness manifests throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Thank you. Please be seated. $589. Al ken nekavelecha Adonai Eloheinu lirot mehera b'tiferet uzecha l'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai. Together, Adonai, our God, how soon we hope to behold the perfection of our world, guided by a sacred covenant drawn from human and divine meeting. And 591. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We continue on 594, and while I read a meditation prior to the Kaddish prayer, I invite those observing a yard site on this Shabbat or who have experienced the death of a dear one in recent weeks or months to rise during the meditation. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. On this Shabbat at Beth Hillel Temple, we particularly remember Mary Beth Meikrut and Marilyn Burrs, who but recently were taken from our midst. May their souls be bound up in the bond of eternal life. And we mark the yard sites of Stacy Foltz, Esther Gottlieb, Alan Milton Brooks, Elias Shaffron, Fred Robinson, Wayne C. Gooder, Jenny Rosenfeld Harband, Ethel Lepp, Samuel J. Phillips, Clara Aronson, Saul Zion, Ruth M. Kullberg, Carl Blum, Barbara Y. Berg, Robert Frankel, Edward Cohn, Mary Olsman, William H. Block, Michael Niels Lepp, and Rita Wolf. Zichronam livracha, may their memories serve as a blessing. We turn to page 598 and all rise for Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabah, be'alma divarach hirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imeru amen. Yehei shemei rabah mevarach alam ulamei amaya. Yit barach v'yish tabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh. V'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shemei dekudesha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imeru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and let us say. Please be seated. We call upon Ben again, which is our representative from the Leadership Council tonight, to share a welcome message.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
On behalf of the Leadership Council of Beth Hillel Temple, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all who have joined us this Shabbat, whether in person or on the live stream. We thank Jim and Elika Shapiro for hosting tonight's pre-Oneg Shabbat. There will be no Oneg after services. Join us next Saturday morning, February 17th, as Jaden and Dylan Rudnicki, you hear that, guys? Mark their B'nai Mitzvah. Please RSVP using the link on the e-blast sent Tuesday or in the e-news if you plan on attending. We continue to be concerned about the situation in Israel and Gaza. We will maintain our blue ribbon empty chairs on the bima until all of the hostages are released by Hamas. Other temple information is found at the temple website. An e-news with current information was sent on Thursday. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And again, after we're done with the closing song, we'll stay here in our seats, and I hope you picked up the handout when you came in that will frame our discussion this evening. Our closing song is on 625. Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, La'et Nasa, L'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nivra, Adon Olam, Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, Ve'hu Haya, Ve'hu Hover, Ve'hu Yeh V'tifara Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, La'et Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'hu Echad, Ve'ein Sheni, Lahamshilo Lahachbira Adon Olam, V'li Reshit, V'li Tachlit, V'lo Ha'os Ve'hamizra Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, La'et Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'hu Eli, V'chai Goali, V'tzur Chavli Be'et Sarah Adon Olam, Ve'hu Nisi, Umanosli, Menat Kosi B'yom Ekra Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, La'et Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon B'yado, Afkid Ruchi, Be'et Ishan Ve'a'ira Adon Olam, Ve'im Ruchi, Geviati, Adonai Li V'lo Ira Adon Olam. Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to stay up here, and I'm going to ask somebody in the congregation to be in charge of this handheld mic so that when we have someone making a comment in the congregation, they can be heard on the live stream, not just in the room. So would someone like to be our facilitator for that? Thank you, Ben. Okay, and you can mute it when you're not, when someone's not speaking, but it'll be okay if it stays on. So these handouts are from the National Council of Jewish Women. They are a very strong advocate of reproductive rights in the Jewish community, and they have, for the last 4 years, called this Shabbat, when we read that passage from Mishpatim that we're going to look at, they call it Repro Shabbat, and we don't do it every year, but we are observing Repro Shabbat, and thank the National Council of Jewish Women for providing the materials for us to frame our discussion, to learn about what Judaism has to say on this issue. As you all know, abortion is a major crisis right now in the United States. Since Roe versus Wade fell in the summer of 2022, so it's already a year and a half now, going on 2 years. I'm sure you know that many states have passed outright bans of abortion or imposed very strict limits on abortion. The abortion bans often reflect a very specific Christian definition of the beginning of life. And that definition, that Christian definition of the beginning of life, is not universally accepted even in the different Christian denominations. So it's a particular Christian definition of the beginning of life. And these bans limit the termination of pregnancy, even in instances where Jewish law not only permits it, but requires it. So Jewish law is very clear on this topic, and we're going to learn about the texts that support that this evening. So we're going to turn to the back side of the first page. Actually, it's called page 2. And tonight I'm going to be reading the text so that I'm sure the people who are listening on the live stream will hear the actual text, and I hope with the help of the microphone they'll hear most of the discussion as well. So we're going to start by looking at this foundational text, this root text that I read in Hebrew tonight from the Torah. Exodus 21, verses 22 through 25. When men fight, and one of them pushes a pregnant woman, and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according as the woman's husband may exact from him, the payment to be based on reckoning. But if other damage ensues, the penalty shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are not to take that last section literally. It means if a life is taken, that person's will be guilty of manslaughter, and they will pay whatever the court determines for manslaughter, etc. It's not literally a life taken for a life. And I hope you can kind of just not, tonight we're not discussing how it's the woman's husband who, extracts the penalty from the man. But that's problematic, of course. These are texts that were written in a patriarchal time, but that's not our topic tonight. So having looked at that text, it's important to understand that this is not talking about abortion, right? It's talking about a woman being accidentally damaged, accidentally injured when other people are fighting, and she has a miscarriage, right? But what does this text tell us about the status of the fetus here? How is the fetus viewed in this text? Look at it again. If the miscarriage results and no other damage ensues, what happens to the, what's the punishment? It's not. It's a fine. It's a fine, whatever the husband asks for, right? Rebecca? It's not on, I don't think. But you have to press, it has to be on green. Sorry about that. Okay. I put new batteries in it this afternoon, so I don't know why we're having a problem. Okay. Just turn it off and turn it on again. But Rebecca, nice and loud, what were you saying?
That it's treated as if any other bodily injury, like a broken bone or internal damages.
Exactly. It's not working. It's a fine, as if she'd had some damage took place, but it's not manslaughter, right? Okay. So what does that tell us about how the fetus is viewed? It's not a person. Thank you. It's not a person. So this is why this is the fundamental text. It's not a fully formed human life. It's not considered a person. And this is fundamentally different from how traditional Christianity views the fetus, right? Okay, let's move on now to some other texts. First, now we're on page 3. Babylon, we're going to do 2 of these together, 2 texts from the Babylonian Talmud. The first one, if she is found pregnant until the 40th day, it is mere fluid. This is how the fetus is viewed till the 40th day. Okay, this is from, it says here the Talmud is from between the years 200 to 500. At some point, it's in there, this text was written. The notes here, it says 40 days ends up about being 7 to 8 weeks of pregnancy by our current reckoning. Okay? And I'm going to do the next one from the Babylonian Talmud. What is the reason for Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's position in the above conversation? He holds that a fetus is considered as its mother's thigh. that is as part of the pregnant person's body. How do these two texts help us get a clearer understanding of the Jewish view on the current abortion debate? Now the mic is working, so if you want to say something, Ben will bring it to you.
Well, I think that it emphasizes the woman's life, right? And it's her life, and this is part of her, if it's part of her body, right, then and the fetus is not considered a separate life, right? Then we're concerned about her body and her life.
Right, so the fetus is just considered part of her, like her part of, a body part of hers, right? And that's the second text. Anything else about either the first or second text? Mary Kay?
It says it's mere fluid. In other words, it isn't even defined as existing other than the fluids in the woman's body.
Right, and of course we realize that, in the early centuries of the Common Era, we didn't have the kind of science that we have now, and the rabbis may not have understood fully in the first 40 days what a fetus looked like, although certainly there were miscarriages and they probably knew something about it. But their view of it was, it's not a baby, right? It's not a full life. Yes, Jim. He'll bring you the mic.
Going back to the previous passage, they understood a hand, they understood an eye, they understood a miscarriage isn't transferable to a male, and so they acknowledged that it was a part of her body that couldn't be, they couldn't they couldn't take from the male the same penalty. I mean, this is talking about penalties, and so they really acknowledged that it was part of the woman, and it was a loss. It wasn't a separate entity in and of itself. So
Right.
the first passage that we read parallels these
Okay, good.
particular passages.
So that then there was a fine. It wasn't like they don't recognize that it's not any damage. They recognize that it's a fine, but it's not the same as a full life. And somebody else on these texts, these two texts? So, the timing, of course, is very important to the current discussion, right? Because in many states, abortion's being, not allowed at all or limited to the very, very early weeks, often before a woman even realizes she is pregnant. And in those states, they're saying this is a child, and this child deserves to live. And yet in Jewish texts, it's not a child. It's fluid. It's part of her body. It is not considered a child. And it's not, you'll see later that it does not have the same right to live as does the mother. Okay? So we're going to go on to page 4. This text is from the medieval Rabbi Maimonides, and it deals directly with when an abortion is allowed or even required. Okay, so up to this point, we haven't discussed abortion at all. We've discussed miscarriage, the status of the fetus, how is the fetus viewed in terms of, is it is it part of the woman, right? But now we get a text that has to do with abortion. So I'm going to read it again just to make sure people online are hearing it. And I know some of you are loud, but in order for the live stream to pick up what you're saying, you need to speak into the mic. So this is from Maimonides' Law Code, the Mishnah Torah, under the category of murderers and preservation of life. This indeed is one of the negative mitzvot, not to take pity on the life of a rodef. A rodef is one who seeks to kill someone. Usually we'd think of it as in a situation where there's someone who wants to, comes into your house and wants to kill you for whatever reason. That is to say, we are commanded to be proactive in cases of self-defense. We can kill in self-defense, okay? On this basis, our sages ruled that when complications arise and a pregnant woman cannot give birth, It is permitted to abort the fetus in her womb, whether with a knife or with drugs. For the fetus is considered a rodave of its mother, that it's pursuing the mother. If the head of the fetus emerges, it should not be touched, because then it's a life. One life should not be sacrificed for another. Although the mother may die, this is the nature of the world. So until the baby's head emerges from the womb, it is considered to be pursuing the mother, and the mother's life takes precedence. Once its head is out of the womb, then we'll see what happens. One life is not chosen over the other. So how does Maimonides understand the status of a case where the pregnant person's life is in danger? And how are we to understand the nature of abortion in this situation? And let's talk too. It says here, what are the methods that are valid? Anyone want to share what you got out of this text?
So basically what I understand is that if the mother's life is in danger because of the pregnancy or the baby, something's wrong, then in that case it's okay to abort the baby to save the mother.
Yes.
And however, if the fetus is already starting to be born, their head is out, then it's not okay, but let nature take its course.
Yeah, the nature of the world.
It also says that we are commanded to be proactive in cases of self-defense. And so it's not only just permitted, but it's commanded.
It's required, yes.
It's required to protect your own life.
Yes, the mother must protect her own life, and it takes precedence over the fetus, not just allowed.
He also makes a distinction in that the fetus isn't a person until it's outside the womb.
Right.
That kind of reiterates what has been said before. He's just taken one additional step with this, as acknowledged by others, the fact that if the mother's life is in jeopardy, even before personhood of the fetus, that the mother's life takes precedence.
And how is that relevant to our current discussion?
Well, so basically abortion can occur at any time up until the fetus is defined as a person.
Yes,
But doesn't it also say that the mother's life has to be in danger?
yes, in this particular case. Yeah, in this particular text, that's what we're talking about. Right. But it's really interesting because in the current abortion debate, you often hear that it's a person, it's a baby. And in Jewish law, it is not considered a person until it's out of the body, of the mother's body. It has a different status, okay? What about the knife versus the drugs? Anyone want to comment on that? How is that relevant to our current conversation? Rebecca?
It says that either are permitted, and I grew up Christian and very involved in the pro-life movement with that when I was a teen, and they really pushed kind of like the violence, supposedly, that happens with abortion and how much quote-unquote suffering happens. So to me, saying that either drugs, which would be like a medical abortion, or knife, which might be later term abortion now comparatively, either are permissive. They're not this horrible, awful thing that happens.
Right. So it's amazing to think about that in the 12th century, Maimonides already was saying the things that, you're right, on the pro-life position are considered to be so barbaric and so horrible and should never be done, were accepted by Jewish legal authorities. Anything else on these texts before we go on? So, what's it called, mifepristone? I may not be saying it right. I mean, there was something on the radio this morning about that and, trying to be outlawed in certain states. This is a drug that's routinely taken by women who are having miscarriages that are sent home with this medication if they want to have their miscarriage at home. They don't have a choice. They wanted to be pregnant. They're having a miscarriage. Or you can have it, a DNC in a hospital setting. But there are states that want to ban that drug, that mifepristone, which is, already Maimonides was saying drugs can be used for this purpose. Okay, any other? Okay, and then the last, I think this is the last text we're going to use. Oh no, I'm wrong. Not quite the last one, but on the bottom of page 4, I'm going to read, this is a discussion of when abortion is permitted in Judaism in the 18th century. So we've gone forward a few centuries. Rabbi Yehuda ibn Ayash of Algiers is the author here, and it's a responsum. He was asked a question, and this is his authoritative scholarly answer. I was asked and searched my heart and intellect to examine and explore what I had heard about a small group of women who became pregnant and do not want to give birth again, and who do not want to remain pregnant anymore once they had already conceived. And some of these women, if they became pregnant while nursing another child, and they suspect the ayin hara, the evil eye, or danger of the new birth to the living child, and they take a medication and drugs that are known to them to terminate a child, and he will become a nephel, a non-viable fetus. Here, in the case of women of this teshuvah, there is a suspicion about the pregnancy, and it is potential for harm. I think it should be its potential for harm is acknowledged, and women are therefore permitted to ingest this medication. Behold, we have before us exactly what everyone acknowledges is an acceptable situation where an abortion will be permitted, to illustrate the danger to the living child, and the mother is permitted to drink an abortive drug, so it seems, according to my understanding of the issue. Any comments about this 18th century determination by a legal scholar?
Basically, in a previous reading that we had, if the child, if the fetus was imperiling the mother's life, we could abort it. We're now saying that, and one of the others says that, if you're being attacked, basically, you can defend yourself. This is just another extension of that, saying it's not just the mother who may be imperiled, it may be somebody else in the family who's imperiled, in which case it's acceptable to proactively protect your family.
Betsy's. Wait for the mic. Here it comes.
I see this as a woman's choice.
Saying women who do not want to be pregnant, right? And it could be any number of reasons. Interesting, 18th century. Yes.
I'm reminded of the case in the early 2000s of Andrea Yates, who experienced postpartum psychosis and unfortunately killed all 5 of her children. By child 2 or 3, doctors were telling her not to have children because she is experiencing this psychosis and expressed these dangerous thoughts. But because she was part of fundamentalism, they kept pushing it, and she kept getting pregnant, and now all of those children are dead. And it's a very, very unfortunate, of course, a very drastic case, but it is something that we have to consider the lives of the other children, because postpartum depression, psychosis, anxiety are a very, very real problem that people are only now starting to recognize, really.
Thank you. Very relevant story. Anyone else on this one? Okay. And now this will be the last one, I believe. On page 5. Rabbi Jacob Emden, a leading German Orthodox rabbi, and he's writing also in the 18th century. The questioner asks about an adulterous married woman who is pregnant, and this is a good question. It appears to me appropriate to permit her to abort. And even in the case of a legitimate fetus, there's no reason to be lenient if there is a great need, as long as the fetus has not begun to emerge. Even if the mother's life is not in jeopardy, but only so as to save her from woe associated with it that would cause her great pain. Relevance to today, certainly the case that Rebecca just gave. Any other comments on this one? Just kind of reaffirming what we said in the past one, right? Oh, Deborah.
I mean, I think this one could be extended to consider cases of rape.
Yes.
Because, who's to say this adulterous married woman, right? Was she raped? What was the situation here that they're thinking about in 1750, right? More than likely she was raped. So if there was a way to, if she didn't want to be pregnant, like you said, like Betsy said, it was her choice to then have the freedom to end the pregnancy.
So there are some states and, people who are even pro-life advocates who say rape is an exception, but not all. Anything else on that one? Back to Rebecca.
Sorry, I have a lot of thoughts about this with my upbringing.
And you're obviously very well informed about
Thank
it too.
When it comes to rape and molestation, legally convicting someone of rape is incredibly difficult, especially when it comes to adults. Most rape does not leave any marks of violence. It doesn't leave a lot of evidence. And not only, even if you can get a conviction, having that conviction when you find out you're pregnant through the pregnancy, getting it done before the 9th month, very rare if you're going to get a conviction at all. Mm-hmm. Child molesters get off all the time because there's no proof. So it's really not a reliable exception.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, based on these sources, how might you describe the Jewish approach to abortion? If someone asked you, what does Judaism say about abortion? After what you've heard tonight, what few things could you say in response? Anybody? Harry Kay is going to give it a try.
Well, the life of the woman and the health and the well-being of the woman takes priority if she's pregnant, and it isn't something that she should set aside and sacrifice her own life or well-being for a fetus.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that? Aaron?
So basically what we've learned is that the fetus is not considered a life until it's born, or at least starting to be born, and that the mother's life takes precedence, whether it's her health, like you said, Mary Kay, or her mental health, like whether she just wants this pregnancy or not, and what that's going to do to her life, even if it's not a health danger.
Basically, all this kind of it leads to the issue that the comment that it's a choice, right? This is a choice, and it sometimes, the choice is made for you if the mother's life is in danger, if another family's life is in danger, but basically these readings lead to choice, and that until the birth of the child, that fetus has second status to the mother and the mother's family.
I have a question, though, because as we've been reading these texts, even going back with the Torah, and going forward, and there have been changes and modifications, and it's been evolving. Has anywhere in Judaism, in any of the movements, changed the definition of when they believe that the fetus is considered a life? Because like we read about the 40 days, after the 40 days.
Yeah.
Has there ever been any change in that, or is it just in these other areas?
These are pretty traditional foundational texts. I mean, even in Orthodoxy, they don't modify what the Torah says or the Talmud says or even Maimonides. I can't answer that specifically, but there's a lot written, contemporary responsa literature on the topic. But it is fair to say that in the ultra-Orthodox world, sometimes they align themselves with the pro-life movement, not because they don't think that abortion is necessary or allowable in some cases, but because they believe that people will take advantage of the possibilities that exist in Jewish text and not double down on another Jewish value, which is pikuach nefesh. The highest value in Judaism is the saving of a life. And so to kind of ward off people taking advantage of a situation and, maybe in their view, having no good reason for an abortion, they sometimes do align themselves with the pro-life movement, but generally they accept these principles and allow or even require abortion in certain situations. Any last takeaways? Something you're taking away from the conversation tonight?
I found it interesting in all of these, including the first one, that it really comes down to that personal intuition. You know what's best. Even with the first text, where the husband is making the choice, ideally, your husband would know how much pain it caused you, and he's being. I see it as him being an advocate for you in a time where you may not be able to advocate for yourself. Mm-hmm. So you would hopefully be that price that was put was by someone that knows what you're going through with that, because only you really have that intuition if it's a good abortion or not.
That's an interesting way of looking at the male role in that Exodus text. Mary Kay has another comment.
I think that this perspective totally ignores or doesn't take account of the fact that when a woman has a miscarriage, it also needs to be taken seriously, and not, you could take from this, well, it doesn't really matter because it wasn't anything. And I would think that we wouldn't want to draw that conclusion from this.
I don't think it says it's not anything, because you still have to pay a fine, right? The person, there was still a fine.
Oh, yeah, there was a fine, but it totally ignores the woman, the pain the woman would have, who is looking forward to motherhood.
Right, you're right, But it did recognize that it's a loss and it's a damage for the family, or maybe for the husband. Yeah. All right, well, I just want to conclude by saying, making clear that abortion is not only permitted in Jewish law, but in the situation where a woman's life is in danger, it's required. And I think you can tell from this that reproductive rights really is a Jewish issue. And it's something that we as Jews need to stand up for and not let a very particular Christian view dominate the discussion. Thank you, and thanks, Ben, for your help. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody.